Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, in my mind, is a sad and sorry night in the history and the politics even of Barbados. Because if I were to, when I was younger, I used to watch Dallas and Falcon Crest. I'm not a scheming person, but I enjoyed sometimes watching the machinations of JR and the planning and execution of Angela Channing. Well, Clyde Maskell is better than all two of them put together. And you still cannot find an equal to him as a calculating businessman bent on success at all costs. So tonight, I don't think I have to demonstrate to you that Clyde Maskell is not a politician. Chris dealt with that. So what is he? It's not as simple as that. He is a wheeling and dealing businessman who has used the politics of this country for his own progress and advancement. A speculator. I like that word. A political speculator. So less than 2 years ago, and just a couple of months after he made his now historic crossing of the floor in the Parliament of Barbados, an entity called Hardwood Housing Factory Inc. was mysteriously established in this country. And up to a couple of weeks ago, all of us in Barbados were led to believe that Hardwood Housing, as I shall call it from now on, was the brainchild of an ordinary poor black man who had a good idea but needed a little government intervention to assist that, transforming that idea into reality. And I am saying tonight that the idea of Hardwood Housing was not that of that young man called Anthony Murrell. It was Clyde Maskell's idea. But Anthony Murrell is only the front, the face selected to put a front to that business. And I want to deal with line number one that has been told to Barbadians. And it has been told by Clyde Maskell and repeated constantly in the public domain. You remember that he told us that this man, Anthony Murrell, had just returned from Grenada, where he had overseen the construction of 500 houses within 6 months in the post-Hurricane Ivan recovery efforts in that country. That operation was called Operation Mobilization, and it was put together by Christian missions organizations. So like Andy Griffith in the popular TV series Matlock, I had to send an associate to Grenada. Derek said tonight that he went to Anguilla. You didn't have to go to Anguilla. The information was here. And life is funny, but as soon as Clyde Maskell became president of the Democratic Labour Party, he said he never met with him, but he doesn't remember that he came to a meeting with me. And I gave him all of the relevant information that he requested of me in relation to that gentleman, Rodney Wilkinson. But we are not going to deal with him tonight. I am focusing on Hardwood Housing. I'll get to that later. So we sent somebody to Grenada to do some digging. And the total falsehood of that statement, which I consider to be line number one by Clyde Maskell, became manifestly clear. The people of Grenada know nothing about it. They have never heard about this housing program that Clyde Maskell spoke about. And indeed, one of the biggest charges that has been laid against the Keith Mitchell administration in Grenada is that it has been slow to address the issues of housing and resolve the problems of housing in the period post-Hurricane Ivan. You know that if a government had built 500 houses, nobody would be able to complain about that, especially in 6 months' time, and especially in Grenada. But my further investigations revealed that Mr. Anthony Murrell might have been associated with a minuscule project which attempted house construction in Grenada, but that his own visits to the Spice Island took place a long time after the project was on stream. And you know how long he stayed in Grenada? For 3 weeks. The people got fed up with his behavior and they sent him back to Barbados and terminated him from being involved in the project. So falsehood number 1, which has been perpetrated on the people of Barbados, was this man had built all of these 500 houses, that he had a new technology to bring to the people of this country, that the problems of low-income housing in Barbados would be resolved. But at the end of the day, we were able to discover that the gentleman had no substantial experience in the establishment and creation of any housing scheme of the nature outlined by Clyde Maskell. You remember him saying on television one night after announcing this project, "Bring your money and come." You remember that? Bring your money and come. I find it amusing that Reginald Farley has not said a word about Hardwood Housing Factory Inc. He is the Minister of Housing in Barbados. The provision of low-income housing is normally the responsibility of the National Housing Corporation. And this has now been turned over to a company run by a gentleman who nobody in Grenada can identify even 15 houses that he would have built, far less 500. That's a fact. And the second point I want to go on to make relates to the financing of this company known as Hardwood Housing Factory Inc. And I set out in my very first letter to the Prime Minister of Barbados several issues and inconsistencies which have been denied or sidestepped by the government and which I am demanding tonight must be answered. You will recall that it was Clyde Maskell and not Reginald Farley who came to the country with the idea of Hardwood Housing. Hardwood Housing was born not by way of a normal delivery, but by way of a C-section. Its birth was not natural.